Let's get started with Meet Fo1. Meet Dale Young today. Dale's with Coach Dale, and he's just published a book, The Power of Aligning Your Faith and Business. And so, Dale, say hi to everyone as you've done before. Thanks for showing the book. There it is down there in the picture. Tell me, this is your, sixth or seventh book?
This is my seventh. No, it's actually my eighth, but 6 of those were collaborative books. So other people were part of them. All went #1 bestseller. So hopeful that this one will make it. Watching categories in Amazon to see if we hit #1. There's a couple of categories we're in the top 10 already. So
very cool.
Good. Yep. Exciting times. I don't know that the #1 bestseller does anything more than just bragging rights. If it's something for God, then I'm all about the bragging rights.
Yeah, I get it. It seems like they keep moving the bar anyway. So tell us about the book, The Power of Aligning Your Faith and Business. What got you started writing this?
I was going through a rebranding about 1.5 years, 2 years ago, just trying to say, okay, what is Coach Dale? What does it look for? What does it stand for? What's the marketing things that I can do with Coach Dale and such like that? And through that process with Rich Kozak from Rich Brands, one of his things was he generates a bunch of book titles. And one book title that came out of that was The Power of Aligning Your Faith and Business. And I thought it was a really good title. And it actually ended up being the direction of the whole rebrand. That is how it turned out. And so by launching the book, we're actually also launching the rebrand, soft launch of the rebrand. So the brand is actually going to be known as kingdombusinesspower.com. So Kingdom Business Power fits all in here, fits where I'm really going. Through that rebranding, I just decided God was speaking to me through the rebranding and everything. And it was like, okay, I want you to speak to my audience. I want you to speak to Christian people that are already entrepreneurs, already in business. And so that's an intersection of 2 great big circles right there, and I think there's quite a bit of overlap between those 2 circles, but it's not easy to find that overlap a lot. There's not a lot of places where that overlap hangs out. Of course, Follower 1 kind of is, although I'd say probably a lot of the Follower 1 people are not necessarily business owners or business leaders. They're just like average, ordinary people that work for a business or whatever, or they're housewives or whatever. That's a great thing about Follower 1 is that it speaks to every man, right? And everybody can do something to serve the Lord. And really what I'm trying to get the people that are in business to realize is that they can serve the Lord to a greater extent than what they are, one way or the other.
That's very cool. You and I have talked a lot about this distinction, but I don't know that a lot of our friends and folks in faith at work ministry think much about the distinction. It is a little different, though, focusing primarily on business owners and executives than it is focusing on everyone, correct?
Of course, yeah. And that's what marketing is all about, is you have to speak to a target, hoping that your bullseye on your target that you're speaking to has enough common language that it hits everybody that's even close. That's the whole marketing principle. And that's really what I'm trying to do with this, by focusing on a particular group of people, which is Christian business owners, and actually Christian business owners of smaller firms. I'd say less than 10 people is really my sweet spot, is really where I fit best. And by focusing on that, the message that you develop actually applies to a lot of people.
Yes. So what would you say is the biggest obstacle that you ran up against repeatedly with regards to writing this book?
A lot of people just say, oh, I
Me.
get it. No, people say, I get it. They understand it. And that's really true. A lot of people do. But I call it a spectrum, right? There's the people that they go to church on Sunday and they don't think about God for the rest of the week. And they're over here at what I would call the left side of the spectrum. Okay. And then people get more and more involved in business. God becomes part of the business more and more as you get towards the middle. And then there's the people that are actually way over on the right side as well. The people that are so spiritual that they won't actually build a business. The people that refuse to charge what they would normally get for a service if they were going to somebody else out there in the world. This service that I provide is $1,500 or something, but because you're a Christian, I'll give it to you for free or something like that. And I can speak to that side because I was on that side myself. I was giving Christians a lot bigger discount than I really should have. And sometimes I think that's because Christians tend to expect it from other Christians. And it's really, Christians should be the first ones to come up and pay for what the actual value that they're getting. I can't give away everything for free. I've got bills to pay and companies to run and things like that. So I have to charge something.
Yeah. I get that. Since that was one of the obstacles that you ran into, did you learn anything through this experience? What was one big learning takeaway that you got from this?
I think the biggest takeaway that I got was the fact that I've been working on this stuff for so long. I've done a lot of this stuff even since I started coaching way back in 2011, but a lot of it was very generic type of things. And over time, I developed specific ways to tackle things that when I started trying to put my processes and systems together in a way that I could talk about them in more of a marketing sense or whatever, that's when I realized, oh, I've actually customized a lot of this stuff. I've really put some names to it already. I can put some more names to it and things like that. And you and I went through the Clifton Strengths process way back when, for example. Okay, that's a piece of what I do now. Okay, I call it the Revealing Strengths and Identity process, but I've expanded it. I bring in the Clifton Strengths, I bring in spiritual gifts, I bring in values assessments, or core values, and I bring in the working genius as well on the next step. And you bring all that together and you get a very unique view of the person. The Clifton Strengths can be very unique just by itself, but it takes a while to dig through them and understand them. Using some of these other things, you can get some wins under your belt as you go along before having to spend a whole bunch of money and time diving deep into Clifton Strengths.
Yeah, and you should slow down just a little bit and explain what the other assessments are, but you can get all of these by contacting Dale. Dale shorthanding a lot of this because he and I talk about this stuff all the time.
Yep.
He's helped with the Working Genius, for example, with Follower 1.
Yeah. So Dale at Coach Dale is the email to reach out to me, and I'll be happy to respond. If you buy the book, you're going to get some free gifts that come along with the book. There's a whole community where all of this stuff is explained in much more detail and whatever. So I am just hitting the highlights right now. But for example, spiritual gifts, let's dive a little bit into that. Almost every church has their own spiritual gift survey, depending on how you count them, anywhere from 7 to 21 spiritual gifts, depending on how you parse the Bible, right? And such like that. So I've got one that has 17 spiritual gifts, and I provide that for free through the process. And the nice thing about working with me on that is you take the assessment, you get the results, but I get the results as well, and I will go do some research. I'll go use AI and look you up and say, okay, Mr. Joe Blow, you're doing this and this and this, and I see that on social media, and I see your LinkedIn, and I see your post, and I see your spiritual gifts. I'm going to look at all of that and bring it all together and give you my thoughts on how well you're using your spiritual gifts in your business, since that's what I focus on. If your business is, I don't know, maybe your spiritual gift is giving or something like that, how do you make enough money to satisfy and do that gift that you're doing? Are you actually making enough money to give away a lot of it, type of thing? Or maybe your spiritual gift is leadership. Okay, what kind of leadership role are you doing? You're not doing a leadership role? What's going on? Let's unpack that. So that's the kind of thing I can do with the spiritual gifts. Another one is the core values. There's literally thousands of core values assessments And the three that I used to use are all defunct now, or they want you to pay now or whatever. So I'm coming up with my own version of that, which the one I really like is one that actually I saw John Maxwell use to start with, which was, okay, we all have core values. How much do we actually pay attention to them, and how much do we honor them? And what happens when core values get in conflict with each other? Okay, how do you express the fact that for myself, integrity is a much higher core value than growth, for example? Okay, for other people, it might be exactly opposite. So they'll do growth and cut corners on the integrity type of side. So that's one of the values assessments that I'm going to have. It's not quite available yet, but the book came out before the assessment was ready.
Yeah, you and I talked about this because I think I need to look at core values. I find that when I'm not acting in my core values, I run out of gas pretty quickly and I get irritated easily.
Yeah, the way that energy works with how you're doing stuff, it's just really amazing. Matter of fact, I actually rebranded the Working Genius thing that I do. Working Genius is an assessment by Patrick Lencioni. But Working Genius it's almost like the verb that goes with the nouns. Okay, so a DISC or a Myers-Briggs or even Clifton Strengths, that's the noun. That tells you about who you are. Okay. The Working Genius tells you about how you do it. It's more of the verb, the functional, the what are you going to do with that? And the Working Genius has 6 categories. But it actually turns out that everybody has 2 what they call geniuses that give you energy and joy, and 2 frustrations that take away energy and joy. Clifton Strengths has the same process with each of the 34 talents giving you or taking away from the energy and joy. And so really paying attention to how your energy fluctuates when you're either acting in a certain way or trying to be a certain person, or when you're actually actively doing certain things. For example, you and I both share invention. So we come up with ideas of new ways to do things very easily, but neither one of us have tenacity. So we're not very detailed about going out and actually getting those in place. That's why I have VAs. That's why you have VAs. That's why you have a support team.
Yeah, so very cool that you talk about all that. I'm going to suggest the book to people. Also want to suggest the assessments in Dale's coaching to people. But your primary focus is on business owners, smaller business owners, people who own smaller businesses. But people who are not in that category, they can still reach out to you too, right?
Absolutely. I love working with anybody that really wants to grow and really wants to learn about themselves, and really particularly anybody that wants to do this in the service of the Lord. Because what it really comes down to is through this process, I've been talking here about identity and a little bit about community. And of course, both of those are topics that are near and dear to follower of one completely, right? We need to know who we are and whose we are and how did Christ create us and all this sort of stuff. We need to know where we belong in terms of what kinds of people are around us, who's our family of origin, who's our family of choice, who's our church family, who's our pickleball family if we play pickleball, all that sort of stuff, right? So those are the 2 bases. But then my third circle is what I call calling. And calling to me is the call or the pull that the Lord has on us that is pulling us forward towards our divine purpose. Okay, purpose is a very loaded word. A lot of people are using it nowadays. And so I use calling to say, Lord's actually calling you in a particular direction. It's not something that you've made up your own purpose. He's calling you to that direction. So that's the divine purpose. That's how I define it there. And really anybody that doesn't know what they want to be when they grow up, they don't know what they want to do next year, if they don't have a direction, that's the people whose hearts I'm really out to serve and to help them figure that piece out, however I can do that.
Yeah. Do you find that a lot of people expect things to get easier when they understand their purpose? And do they realize that expectation, or do they have challenges with that expectation?
There's some on both sides, but the vast majority probably don't realize that it's probably going to get harder before it gets easier. The Lord gives us ideas of where we should go, but he doesn't tell us all the problems that are going to be in the meantime. Because if he did, we wouldn't even try and go there, right? It's just like setting up follower one. I've been around you for a long time, right? Even before follower one.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those things that he doesn't show us the whole path because we get scared off and wouldn't even take the first step.
And you didn't let me surprise you with that question. But anyway, yes, we run into that. It gets harder a lot of times.
Absolutely. It gets harder, but it also gets more fulfilling. It gets more joyful. Okay. It may be tough. It may hurt in the meantime, but just like weight training or anything else, you've got to actually stretch and put some weight on those bars before you try and lift them. If you're going to grow, if you're going to get stronger.
What do you hope happens as a result of this book launch?
I really hope that this book gets in the hands of the people that need it and that they change their direction and they start following their calling. And really, when you start following your calling, you're going to leave a better legacy. And that's really the whole purpose here, is to help people get to where they're leaving a better legacy. And you've probably heard me say this before, but what's the difference between an inheritance? An inheritance is what you leave to someone. It's money or land or this or something. But a legacy is what you leave in someone. It's the effect you had on them. It's the character traits you passed on. It's the values you passed on. It's the goodness that you pass on.
Yeah. So do you find that people who are most interested in this are later in their career, or are you seeing this go across all different age groups?
I work more with older people because I am an older person, I think. But there is a lot of interest with younger people if they've been brought up in the right mindset and everything. And I think a lot of people do. There is quite a revival among young people that I see out there in the marketplace. And a lot of them are really seriously hungry for that purpose, or that what do I do, or what am I supposed to do? Those are questions that are really at top of mind for across all generations. And my answer is, you do what the Lord's created you to do. That's really going to satisfy you the most. If you try and do anything else, you're basically running away, just like Jonah running away from Tarsus. If God really wants you there, he's going to send a whale after you sooner or later. You might as well just go that direction to start with, if you know that's what he wants you to do. But yeah, a lot of people have interest in this across the age groups, and it's definitely across the sexes. I've seen people, there's a lady in South Africa that follows me all the time and is really interested in the stuff I do, for example. It applied, I think it's just a human thing. I think a lot of young people haven't been exposed to the ideas that you can actually figure this stuff out and you can actually go work on it and start learning about it.
Yeah.
The book does nothing more than just help some of those people find some of that and start looking in the right place.
And so that brings up another question too, because I was actually thinking about like my parents' generation. My dad came out of the Depression, and so there used to be fewer choices. And the discoveries, it's like we had fewer knobs, things that we could adjust for ourselves because we were constrained by our environment, yet people would still find ways to do that. Now it seems like we have so many options that I think is what's brought on the need for all these different types of assessments as a result. I think there's a real science in studying yourself, but the better you know yourself, the easier it is for you to make choices. Do you find that with your clients?
Absolutely. Going Sam and going back in time with that, she was one of the first people that I took through the Clifton Strengths. I really saw a major change in her life. She shut down her current job and started up a new job right after that and knocked it out of the park, and has been out there employing people in a part-time manner for I guess it's actually 7 years.
7 years.
Her 7th year anniversary. And that's great. Look at the difference that she's made in the world because of all that. And she said it so well. When I stopped swimming upstream and turned and actually did with what the Lord had created me to do, that's when the magic happened. It's one of the best ways to express it. It does feel like magic, but it's not magic. It's just that you're doing what you're intended to do.
Yeah. This is really cool. I'm excited for you. I hope that people get the book. You're running a special right now. The Kindle version is $2, $1.97, so people can get a copy and see what's going on. I'm grateful for you doing that. And right now you're selling the paperback for $7.
That's right.
So that won't stay that way, right? It will be going up.
Yeah, it'll be that way for about a week, and then it's probably going to go to $16.97.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I want to encourage anybody listening to this audio to check the link in the description or in the chat if you can get to it and get a copy of the book, because I think it will help you with this whole idea of discovering where your best energy comes from and where your gifting is, and getting excited about that and going after it and aligning and getting all that aligned, especially in the for-profit business world.
Yeah, and a lot of times we don't realize it. We go work at a job, and maybe it's not the job that we really want or whatever. Okay, but we go home and we have these hobbies, and sometimes those hobbies are really exciting, but sometimes you don't have any energy to work on the hobbies because you've drained yourself during the day working at things you don't need to be working at. Okay, sometimes it's worthwhile to consider doing a different job. Okay, and I can help people think through what kind of job they're going to need to look at and such like that. Sometimes it's a matter of they're trying to do things because they are expected to do. I'm a CPA because my dad was a CPA or something like that. Okay, let's take those things. Yeah, let's take those things off the table and let's look at how God actually created you and how it works for you. And then let's figure out how all the things go together. And that's really where my secret sauce comes in. Is it's not in looking at this assessment or that assessment, it's looking at all of them together for you, with a lot of just interaction and talking with you and saying, okay, how does this fit? How does that fit? Let's try some things. Let's do some little steps and see if they make sense or not.
Exactly. And I can testify. So Dale's been coaching me and helping me for years, and more than 8. And I have learned a lot, but there's also, I think, this challenge of having a Christian coach, because it's so easy to think this is all mechanical or that it's all built on this temporal level that we live in. We live in a temporal world, and there's a spiritual world that's eternal that exists outside of that. And we get to lean into that relationship with Christ and trust him even more the better that we know this information about ourselves, the better we understand this stuff. And so I want to encourage everybody listening to this to be more intentional than you already are. Just take it up a notch from where you are. Discover a little bit more about yourself. Check out the book. Look at whatever it is that the Holy Spirit's prompting you to do something about, and start to move and do something about it, and watch what he does, because I think it will make a difference in your life, and we'll get a lot more joy from living out our lives following him in front of everyone we see.
Absolutely. It just goes back to the same story that you had starting Follower One. You wanted to serve in the church. Okay, but the only things that they had was setting up chairs and teaching Sunday school or whatever. And you knew that wasn't for you. Okay, you're already ahead of the curve by just knowing those things. Okay, if you don't know those things, get these assessments and figure them out, and figure out what does work for you. And you may find something that if you get into serving in one particular area, that's the joy spot for you. That's the thing that's going to fill you up. And that might even turn into something that turns into your long-term career or whatever.
Yeah. I'm excited. And so we'll put a link to it in. It's The Power of Aligning Your Faith and Business by Dale Young. Check it out on Amazon. Get a copy today, especially today. As we're recording this April 7th, this is the launch day. but do it as quickly as you can so that you can use it going forward. And Dale, I appreciate you being on here today. I appreciate you stepping out and doing this.
Follower One has had a big impact on me over the years. And by me doing this, by me taking these steps, what's our phrase? We want to move everybody one notch closer to Jesus. This is
Yep.
my way of moving a whole bunch of people one notch closer to Jesus.
Exactly.
That's what I'm out here trying to do.
Well, very cool. Get a copy of the book or do whatever you need to do so that you can step more into your calling by God and let Him put you to work. I'm grateful for what you're doing, Dale. Thanks so much for being a part of our community, being on our board, and being involved with this ministry. And I'm excited about your book. So thanks.
It's an honor to be here, Mike. Thank you for having me.
Hey, and to everyone listening or to live or recorded, remember what we do because we follow Jesus matters forever. So none of this is going to go without a reward, and a reward that lasts forever. So I'm excited about how God is using us in the world and allowing us to use this technology. So thanks very much for being a part of this, and thanks everyone for living out your faith, letting your faith make a difference in your life. Thanks very much.